On my wedding day, my in-laws mocked my brother in front of 800 guests. They said, "That's not a man, that's gutter trash." My fiancée laughed loudly. I stood up and canceled the wedding. My brother looked at me and said, "Brother, I own their entire company." Their faces went pale. The fluorescent lights of County General Hospital flickered at 2 a.m. as Austin Perez hunched over his 10th cup of coffee. Medical charts spread across the nurse's station. 5 years of pre-med, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, all leading to this moment where he'd choose between saving a patient's leg or their life. He chose the leg. Took him 14 hours. But the construction worker would walk his daughter down the aisle someday. "Dr. Perez, you're insane," his attending said, clapping his shoulder. Insane and brilliant. Austin didn't do it for praise. He did it because someone had to care. His younger brother, Samuel, taught him that the kid who'd been born with a twisted spine, who'd endured 7 surgeries before age 12, who'd been written off by half the medical establishment. Austin had watched their mother work 3 jobs to afford treatments, watched his father's heart give out from the stress when Austin was 19. He'd switched from business school to medicine the next semester. Samuel needed someone who gave a damn, and if the system wouldn't provide it, Austin would become the system. Samuel had other plans. While Austin carved through medical textbooks, Samuel carved through financial markets. The kid had a mind like a calculator and patience like a saint. Started with $5,000 from their father's life insurance. Turned it into $50,000 by sophomore year of college. Then $500,000. By the time Austin was chief resident at 32, 28-year-old Samuel was quietly buying distressed assets and turning them profitable. He never talked about his wins, never flaunted his success. He still lived in their childhood neighborhood, still drove their father's old Camry, still wore discount suits. "Why do you live like you're broke?" Austin once asked. Samuel had smiled that quiet, knowing smile that made him seem decades older than he was. "Because I remember what broke actually feels like, and I never want to become the kind of person who forgets." Austin met Christina Becker at a hospital fundraiser. She was everything he thought he wanted. Beautiful, polished from a successful family. Her father, Brent, owned Becker Industrial Solutions, a mid-size manufacturing company that supplied parts to automotive plants across the Midwest. Her mother, Maureen, was on every charity board in the city. The kind of woman whose smile could grace magazine covers and whose judgment could ruin reputations. "You're a doctor," Christina had said. Her eyes lighting up. "That's incredible. My parents will love you." They didn't. 3 months into dating, Austin met the Beckers at their country club. Brent's handshake was crushing and calculating, his eyes measuring Austin's worth in real time. Maureen's greeting was warm until she asked where Austin grew up. The warmth evaporated when he mentioned the South Side. "How humble," Maureen said, the words sounding like an insult wrapped in velvet. But Christina insisted it didn't matter. "They'll warm up to you," she promised. "They're just protective." Austin wanted to believe her. He'd been alone for so long. His mother had passed from cancer 2 years ago, and Samuel was his only family. The idea of belonging somewhere, of being part of something larger than hospital shifts and empty apartments was intoxicating. So, he overlooked the small comments. The way Brent always forgot his name, calling him the doctor like a job title instead of a person. The way Maureen would talk about their family's lineage, tracing it back to some industrialists from the 1800s, while pointedly never asking about Austin's family. Samuel saw through it immediately. "They're users, Austin," he said over dinner at their favorite hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant. "I've seen their type. They want the status of a doctor's son-in-law without actually respecting the person. You haven't even met them." "I've done my research." Samuel pushed his glasses up. That meant he'd dug deep. Becker Industrial is in trouble. They lost their 2 biggest contracts last year. Their stock is down 40%. Maureen's trust fund is what's keeping them afloat, and that dries up when she turns 65 next year. So, they're going through a rough patch. That doesn't make them bad people. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Just be careful. I know you want a family, but family doesn't come from a wedding certificate. It comes from who stands beside you when everything goes to hell." Austin proposed 6 months later at the same country club where they'd first had dinner with her parents. Christina said yes before he finished the question. The Beckers threw an engagement party that cost more than Austin's annual salary, inviting 300 of their closest friends. Samuel came in his discount suit, bringing a bottle of wine that cost $30. Maureen had looked at it like he brought boxed wine, then tucked it behind the bar where no one would see it. "Your brother is sweet," Christina said later. "But maybe for the wedding, we could set him up with a stylist. My parents are inviting some very important people." Austin should have ended it then. But he'd already sent invitations, already put deposits on venues, already imagined the life they'd build. So, he convinced himself it would get better after the wedding. Once the stress of planning was over, once they were actually family, the wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in June at the Riverside Estate, a sprawling venue with manicured gardens and a ballroom that could host 800 guests. Austin had wanted something smaller, more intimate, but Morin insisted. The Becker name means something in this city. She'd said, "We have obligations." Samuel arrived early on the wedding day, looking uncomfortable in his rented tuxedo. Austin was in the groom's suite, adjusting his bow tie for the 50th time when his brother knocked. "You okay?" Samuel asked, nervous, excited, terrified. Austin laughed. "All of it. It's not too late to back out." "Sam, I'm serious." Samuel's expression was grave. "I've been watching them, Austin. The way they treat you, the way they talk about our neighborhood, our family. Yesterday, I heard Morin tell someone, you were rough around the edges, but trainable, like you're a dog. She's just old-fashioned. She's cruel. And Christina laughs when her mother says things like that. I've heard her." Austin felt his chest tighten. "You're being paranoid. I'm being observant. There's a difference." Samuel gripped his shoulder. "But if this is what you want, I'll stand beside you. Always. Just know you deserve better than people who make you feel like you have to earn basic respect." The ceremony was supposed to start at 4. By 3:30, 800 guests filled the ballroom: business associates, distant relatives, society fixtures who attended because being seen at a Becker event mattered. Austin stood at the altar, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, and finding none. His med school friends were working shifts. His residency colleagues were scattered across the country. In this sea of strangers wearing designer labels and false smiles, only Samuel felt real. The processional began. Bridesmaids in champagne-colored gowns glided down the aisle, followed by Christina's maid of honor, her college roommate. Then the music swelled for Christina's entrance. She looked stunning in an off-WH gown that probably cost more than Austin's car, her face radiant behind the veil. But then something shifted in the crowd. A commotion near the back. Austin saw Samuel standing frozen as Brent Becker's voice cut through the music. "Move. You're blocking the aisle." Samuel was standing in the side row, not blocking anything. But Brent wanted him to sit further back apparently. Morin joined her husband, her voice pitched to Carrie. "Honestly, some people have no sense of decorum." Samuel tried to sidestep into his seat, but his foot caught on someone's purse strap. He stumbled, catching himself on the chair. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. The kind of laughter that's really mockery, wearing a polite mask. Brent's voice boomed across the ballroom. "Christ, can't even walk straight. What kind of trashy?" Morin cut him off, but her version was worse. "Darling, please don't make a scene." Then addressing the crowd like she was explaining an embarrassing relative. "That's the groom's brother. You know, they come from difficult circumstances." The laughter grew louder. 800 people watching Samuel. Brilliant. Kind Samuel who'd overcome more than anyone in this room could imagine being treated like a spectacle. Austin's hands clenched at his sides. But then Christina's voice joined in from the back of the ballroom, her laughter bright and sharp. "Oh my God, did you see that?" He literally just She dissolved into giggles, whispering with her bridesmaids. "That's not a man. That's gutter trash." The words hit Austin like a physical blow. He looked at Samuel, saw his brother's face, not embarrassed, not angry, but resigned, like he'd expected this all along, like he'd been warning Austin about exactly this moment, and Austin had been too desperate for belonging to listen. The officiant cleared his throat, trying to restore order. "Ladies and gentlemen, if we could," Austin walked away from the altar. The crowd fell silent as he strode down the aisle, every eye following him. He reached Samuel first, standing beside his brother in a gesture that needed no words. Then he turned to face the 800 guests, his voice steady and clear. "This wedding is cancelled," Morin gasped. "Austin, don't be cancelled." He repeated louder. "All of it. There will be no ceremony. You can leave." Christina pushed through her bridesmaid's veil. "SKW. Are you insane? We can't just watch me." Austin turned to her and he saw her clearly for the first time. Not the woman he'd convinced himself she was, but the woman she'd always been. "You laughed when your father humiliated my brother. You laughed. It was just a joke." "Austin, God, you're so sensitive about people I love." "Yeah, I am." He looked at Brent and Morin. "You wanted to marry your daughter to a doctor. Congratulations. You get nothing instead." Brent's face purpled. "You ungrateful little. Do you have any idea what this wedding cost? Well, we've invested in you." "Invested?" Austin laughed bitter. You spent 6 months trying to sand down every rough edge that reminds you I'm not from your world. Well, guess what? I don't want to be from your world. My world has people in it worth respecting. He started to leave Samuel beside him when his brother spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried across the silent ballroom. Mr. Becker, Mrs. Becker. Samuel adjusted his glasses. I should probably mention something. You know that investment firm that bought controlling interest in Becker Industrial Solutions 3 months ago? The one that's been keeping your company solvent. Brent's expression shifted from rage to confusion. Titan Capital Holdings. What about them? Samuel's smile was small and dangerous. I am Titan Capital Holdings. I own 68% of your company. As of 3 months ago, I'm your boss. The silence that followed was absolute. Austin stared at his brother, seeing pieces click into place. The late night calls Samuel had been taking. The new office space he'd rented but never explained. The quiet confidence that had seemed to grow over the past year. Morin's face went white. That's not possible. You're nobody. I'm the son of a factory worker who died trying to give his family a better life, Samuel said softly. I'm the kid who spent his childhood in hospitals because his spine grew wrong. I'm the brother of the best man I know who just walked away from the woman he thought he loved because she couldn't extend basic human decency. And yes, I'm also the person who controls whether your family business survives the next board meeting. Brent lunged forward, but Austin stepped between them. The older man froze. Austin had 4 in and 30 pounds on him. And they both knew it. Walk away, Austin said quietly. While you still can. The ballroom erupted. Guests pulling out phones, Morin clutching her husband's arm, Christina screaming about contracts and lawyers, and Austin ruining everything. But Austin heard none of it. He looked at Samuel, his little brother, who'd been protecting him all along, and started to laugh. You bought their company 3 months ago. They were hemorrhaging money after losing those automotive contracts I mentioned. I offered them a lifeline and they took it without doing due diligence on who Titan Capital really was. You didn't tell me. I wanted to see if you'd walk away on your own first. If you'd choose me over them without knowing I had leverage. Samuel's eyes were bright. You did. You chose right. They walked out of the Riverside estate together, leaving 800 guests and one furious Becker family behind. Austin was still in his tuxedo. Samuel in his rented suit, and neither of them had ever felt more free. In the parking lot, Austin stopped. What happens now? Samuel pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like spreadsheets and legal documents. Now we go have dinner at Changin's like we always do. Tomorrow I have a board meeting at Becker Industrial. And next week, he looked up, his smile sharp. Next week, things get interesting. Austin had one more question. When you bought their company, was it about revenge or business? Both, Samuel admitted. I saw an opportunity. A failing company run by people too arrogant to adapt. I knew I could turn it profitable. But yeah, part of me wanted leverage insurance because I knew people like the Beckers. I knew eventually they'd show you who they really were. I just wanted to make sure when that happened, you'd have options. You've been planning this for months. I've been protecting you like you protected me our whole lives. Samuel's expression softened. You gave up business school to become a doctor because of me. You spent years fighting to give me the best possible life. You think I forgot that? You think I'd let some country club make you feel small? Austin pulled his brother into a hug. I'm sorry I didn't listen. You're not the first person to get blinded by wanting to belong somewhere, but you do belong somewhere with people who know your worth. And tomorrow, the Beckers are going to learn exactly what it costs to underestimate us. They drove to Chang and Samuel's old Camry, still wearing their formal wear, and ordered enough food for 5 people. Mrs. Shang, who'd known them since they were kids, took one look at Austin's tuxedo and Samuel's grin and brought out a bottle of rice wine. Bad wedding? She asked in broken English. Cancelled wedding, Austin corrected. Best decision I ever made. She poured them each a shot. Good. That girl I see her once when she pick you up. She look at my restaurant like it smell bad. You better without her. They drank to that. And as they ate beef chowing and talked about their next moves, Austin realized Samuel was right. Family wasn't about blood or wedding certificates or country club memberships. It was about who stood beside you when the world tried to break you down. And by that measure, Austin had always been rich beyond measure. His phone buzzed. 17 missed calls from Christina. 43 text messages ranging from apologetic to furious to desperate. He blocked the number and ordered more spring rolls. So Austin said, watching his brother navigate through financial reports on his tablet. Tell me about this board meeting next week. What exactly are we doing to them? Samuel's smile could have cut glass. We're teaching them a lesson about respect and humility and what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. I'm listening. Good, because you're going to want to be there for this. Trust me, it's going to be spectacular. The next morning, Austin woke up in his apartment with a headache from rice wine and a clarity that felt almost spiritual. No wedding, no Christina, no more pretending to be someone he wasn't for people who'd never truly accept him. Just him and Samuel and whatever came next. His phone had been blowing up all night. He turned it off around midnight. But now, in the harsh light of day, he knew he'd have to face it eventually. He made coffee first, though. Strong black hospital grade. Then he turned on his phone, 67 missed calls, 123 text messages, 15 voicemails, most from Christina, but several from Morin, 3 from Brent, and oddly one from someone named Eddie Combs at the Riverside estate. He started with Eddie's voicemail. Dr. Perez, this is Eddie from Events at Riverside. Look, I just wanted to say what you did yesterday was the gutsiest thing I've seen in 20 years of wedding coordination. Also, the Beckers are refusing to pay their bill. They're saying you canceled, so it's your responsibility. I'm not going to push it because honestly worth it to see Morin Becker's face, but officially we do need someone to settle the account. Give me a call. Austin almost laughed. The wedding had cost north of $200,000. He didn't have that kind of money lying around. Medical residents weren't exactly rolling in wealth. But before he could worry about it, a text came through from Samuel. Already handled the Riverside bill. Paid in full. Consider it a gift. You just saved yourself from a lifetime of misery. Also, board meeting moved to today. 3:00 p.m. Becker Industrial Solutions headquarters. You should come bring popcorn. Austin texted back. You paid $120 for a wedding that didn't happen. I paid $200K to permanently sever your ties to people who treated you like garbage. Best investment I ever made. See you at 3. Austin showed up to Becker Industrial Solutions at 2:45 p.m. wearing surgical scrubs. He'd come straight from a shift, not bothering to change. The receptionist, a young woman named Cassie Paul, looked at him with confusion. I'm here for the board meeting, Austin said. Are you Dr. Perez? She was clearly trying to place him from the wedding. The cancelled wedding. Yes. Her expression shifted to barely suppressed delight. Oh my God, everyone's been talking about it. Morin came in this morning looking like she'd aged 10 years. Brent locked himself in his office and some guy showed up an hour ago and just took over the conference room like he owned the place. He does own the place. That's my brother. Cassie grinned. This is going to be so good. Conference room is on the 3rd floor. I'll buzz you up. The conference room was glass-walled, overlooking the factory floor below. Through the windows, Austin could see the manufacturing equipment sitting idle. Another bad sign for the company's health. Inside the room, Samuel sat at the head of a massive mahogany table. Looking perfectly comfortable in a suit that Austin now realized probably cost more than the entire wedding. 3 other people were already seated. 2 men in expensive suits who Austin didn't recognize and a woman with steel gray hair who looked like she ate corporate Raiders for breakfast. Samuel stood when Austin entered. Everyone, this is my brother Austin. Austin, this is our legal team. Benjamin McIntosh, corporate law. Hector Schaefer, contracts and acquisitions. And Bonita Schwartz, who specializes in making sure everything we do is ironclad and irrefutable. Benjamin nodded. Heard about yesterday that took balls or common sense. Bonita added, I've dealt with the Beckers before. Morin once tried to sue a caterer because the salmon wasn't pink enough. These are not reasonable people. The door burst open. Brent Becker stormed in. Morin right behind him, both looking like they hadn't slept. Christina followed, her eyes red and swollen. Behind them came 2 more people. An older man in his 60s with a kind of tan that spoke of too much golf and not enough work, and a younger guy, maybe 35, wearing a suit that screamed middle management trying too hard. What the hell is this? Brent demanded. You can't just call a board meeting without. I can actually, Samuel said calmly. I own 68% of voting shares. I can call a board meeting whenever I want. Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. I'm not sitting anywhere until you explain, Mr. Becker. Bonito's voice was pure ice. You will sit down or you will be escorted out of this building by security and permanently barred from the premises. Your choice, Prince sat. So did Morin, though she looked like she wanted to flip the table. Christina stood behind them, looking lost. Samuel pulled up a presentation on the large screen at the front of the room. Let's start with where we are. Becker Industrial Solutions is insolvent. You've been operating at a loss for 18 months. Your 2 largest contracts were lost due to consistent quality control issues and missed deadlines. Your workforce has declined from 230 employees to 147 because you've been doing rolling layoffs rather than addressing the core problems. And your personal spending," he clicked to the next slide, showing a breakdown of expenses, "has continued at an unsustainable rate." Morin's face went red. "You have no right to." "I have every right. I own this company. But let's talk about why I bought it." Another click. 3 months ago, you received an offer from Titan Capital Holdings. We offered you a lifeline in Jet Capital. Take controlling interest, but leave you in operational control. You took the deal without asking questions because you were desperate. You assumed Titan was just another investment firm that would let you keep running things into the ground while we absorb the losses. Who are you really? The older man? Austin assumed he was also a board member, asked quietly. Samuel Perez, son of Thomas and Maria Perez. Thomas died of a heart attack at 46, working 80-hour weeks in a factory not unlike this one to pay for his son's medical bills. Maria died at 52. Cancer because she couldn't afford proper treatment until it was too late. I was that son, the one with medical bills. I spent my childhood watching people like you. He gestured to Brent and Morin. Treat people like my parents as disposable. So when I made my money, I decided to do something about it. This is blackmail. Brent said, I'm trying to save this company despite you. Let me be clear. Becker Industrial Solutions can survive. It has good infrastructure, skilled workers, and relationships with vendors. What it doesn't have is competent leadership. So, here's what's going to happen. Samuel clicked to the next slide. Effective immediately, Brent Becker is removed as CEO. Morin Becker is removed from the board of directors. You'll both retain a token percentage of non-voting shares, enough that you're not completely destitute, but not enough to interfere with actual business operations. You can't do this. Morin shrieked. I can and I am. Benjamin, show them the paperwork. Benjamin slid a thick folder across the table. Everything is legal and binding. You signed over control when you accepted Titan's investment. The terms were very clear. We'll sue. Brent threatened. We'll take you for everything. With what money? Hector asked pleasantly. Your personal assets are mortgaged to the hilt. Your wife's trust fund is nearly depleted and any lawsuit would require discovery, which means every questionable decision you've made in the last 5 years becomes public record, including the embezzlement. The room went quiet. What embezzlement? The younger board member asked nervously. Hector smiled. Turns out Mr. and Mrs. Becker have been quietly siphoning company funds into personal accounts. Nothing massive. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Hidden expense reports, inflated vendor charges, fake consulting fees. Over 3 years, roughly $400,000. We have all the records. Christina gasped. Dad. Brent's face had gone from red to gray. That's we were going to pay it back. Were you? Samuel's voice was soft. Dangerous. Because according to these bank statements, you were using company money to fund your country club memberships, your daughter's wedding, your wife's shopping habits, and your own stock portfolio losses. You were stealing from a failing company, from the employees who depended on you. So, yes, Mr. Becker, we could prosecute, but we're not going to. Why not? Austin asked, genuinely curious. Because prosecution would hurt the company. It would scare off vendors, tank what's left of our reputation, and put 147 people out of work. The Beckers aren't worth that. Samuel turned back to Brent and Morin. Here's the deal. You sign over all remaining shares. You leave quietly. You never use the Becker name in connection with this company again. And in exchange, we don't prosecute. You get to keep your house, your cars, and whatever is left of Morin's trust fund. You walk away from this with something which is more than you deserve. And if we don't agree, Morin asked, her voice shaking. Then we prosecute. You go to prison for embezzlement and fraud, and you lose everything anyway. The only difference is which ending you prefer. Brent looked at his wife, then at his daughter, then back to Samuel. You did this because of yesterday. Because of what I said about my brother? That was just the trigger. I've been watching you for a year, Mr. Becker. I knew who you were long before yesterday. The wedding was just when you finally showed everyone else. Samuel leaned forward. You wanted to know what kind of man my brother is. He's the kind who walked away from a woman he loved because she laughed when you humiliated me. He's the kind who chose loyalty over comfort, family over status, and you mocked him. You tried to make him feel small so you could feel big. So yes, I'm taking your company, but I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it because I can run it better than you ever did and because the people who work here deserve better than you. The older board member cleared his throat. I'm Ernest Crawford. I've been on this board for 15 years and I've watched the Beckers run this company into the ground. If you're serious about turning things around, Mr. Perez, you have my support. The younger member nodded. Brian Holland. Same. I'm honestly just relieved someone's finally doing something good, Samuel said. Because we start tomorrow. New management structure, new operational protocols, new everything. Ernest. Brian, you'll stay on the board if you want. We're going to need institutional knowledge. He slid a paper across to Brent. Sign here. Walk away. It's your only option. Brent stared at the paper for a long moment. Then, hands shaking, he signed. Morin did the same, tears streaming down her face. One more thing, Samuel said as they stood to leave. Stay away from my brother. If I hear that any of you have contacted him, harassed him, or spread rumors about him, the embezzlement charges come back. Are we clear? They nodded. Christina tried to meet Austin's eyes, but he looked away. There was nothing left to say to her. After they left, the room exhaled collectively. Jesus, Brian muttered. That was intense. That was necessary, Samuel corrected. Ernest. Brian, I want you both to meet with me tomorrow morning. We're going to rebuild this company, but we're doing it right. Fair wages, good conditions, transparent accounting. I want the people who work here to actually want to work here. Ernest smiled. Your father would be proud of you. Samuel's expression softened. I hope so, Austin. Can you stay for a minute? After everyone else filed out, Samuel collapsed into his chair. I've been planning that for 3 months, and I was still terrified it would go wrong. It was perfect, Austin said. Brutal, but perfect. I didn't want to be brutal. I wanted to be fair. They stole from their own company, from their own employees. They deserved worse. He looked at Austin. Are you okay? I know this is a lot. I'm better than okay. I'm free and I'm watching my little brother take down the people who tried to make us feel worthless. It's the best I've felt in months. Samuel grinned. Good, because I have another surprise. I want you to join the board. What? Sam, I don't know anything about about integrity. You know about putting people first and you know about fighting for what's right even when it costs you everything. That's exactly what this company needs. He pulled out another folder. I'm creating an employee welfare program. Health coverage, profit sharing, education, assistance. I want you to oversee it. You're a doctor. You understand healthcare better than anyone else in this building. And you're my brother, which means I trust you more than anyone else in this building. Will you do it? Austin looked at the folder, then at Samuel. You really turned their company into something good. I'm going to try with your help. Samuel extended his hand. Partners? Austin shook it. Partners, but I'm keeping my residency. I'm not giving up medicine. I wouldn't ask you to. We'll work around your schedule. The board meets once a month and you can review the health programs whenever you have time. I just want you here helping me make sure we do this right. They left the office together as the sun set over the factory floor. Through the windows, Austin could see the manufacturing equipment still idle. But tomorrow, it would run again. Tomorrow under new management with new priorities. Tomorrow was a fresh start. His phone buzzed. A text from Eddie at Riverside Estate. Heard through the grapevine what happened at the board meeting. You and your brother are legends. Also, if you ever actually want to have a wedding worth celebrating, call me. I'll give you the family discount. Austin showed it to Samuel, who laughed. Getting ahead of yourself, aren't you? You just got out of one engagement. Yeah, but someday when I find someone who treats you like family instead of trash. Someone who earns it. Deal. And when you do, I'll pay for that wedding, too. But this time, it'll actually happen. They drove home in companionable silence. And for the first time in months, Austin felt like himself again. Not the person he'd been trying to become for the Beckers. Not the doctor who worked endless shifts to avoid going home to an empty apartment. Just Austin, brother, son, survivor, and tomorrow, board member of a company that his little brother had saved from destruction. Life was weird sometimes, but looking at Samuel, seeing the quiet pride on his face, Austin thought maybe weird was exactly what they needed. 6 weeks later, Austin stood in the Becker Industrial Solutions parking lot at 6 a.m. watching the morning shift arrive. He'd been working with Samuel and the new management team to implement changes. And today was the big test, the launch of the new employee welfare program. Inside the factory, Samuel had assembled the entire workforce in the main hall. 147 people, many of whom had been with the company for decades, all looking nervous. Under the Beckers, town halls meant layoffs and bad news. Thank you all for coming, Samuel began. I know the last few months have been uncertain. New ownership, new management. You didn't sign up for any of this, so I want to be transparent about where we are and where we're going. He pulled up a slide showing the company's financial status. 6 weeks ago, this company was 3 months from bankruptcy. The previous leadership had been operating at a loss, cutting corners, and burning through capital. You all knew things were bad. What you didn't know was how bad. A murmur ran through the crowd. Austin saw fear on their faces. These were people with mortgages, families, lives built around this job. But here's the good news, Samuel continued. We're turning it around. We've renegotiated contracts with our vendors, brought in new clients, and streamlined operations. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're profitable again. And because we're profitable, I want to invest in the people who made that possible. He nodded to Austin, who stood up. Many of you don't know me. I'm Austin Perez, Samuel's brother. I'm a doctor and I'm also now on the board of directors. We've created something called the Becker Industrial Benefits Program. Terrible name. We're workshopping it, but it's designed to actually take care of you. He clicked to the next slide. Effective immediately. Full health coverage for all employees and their families. No co-pays, no deductibles for preventive care. We've partnered with County General and 3 other hospitals to provide comprehensive coverage. If you're sick, you get treated. Period. The room was silent. People processing what they just heard. Second, profit sharing. This company does well, you do well. Every quarter, 10% of net profits gets distributed among all employees based on seniority and performance. Third, education assistance. You want to get your GED? We'll pay for it. You want to go to trade school? We'll pay for it. You want your kids to go to college? We have scholarship programs. A woman in her 50s raised her hand. Is this real? Because the Beckers used to promise things and then it's real, Samuel said. And it's legally binding. Austin's reviewed every contract personally. We're not making promises we can't keep. This is happening. The silence broke into applause. Then questions rapid fire. How does the health coverage work? When does it start? What about dental vision? Austin fielded them all, using his medical knowledge to explain exactly what was covered and how. By the end of the meeting, people were smiling, some crying. A man named Clyde Murray, who'd been with the company for 23 years, approached Austin afterward. My daughter has diabetes. He said quietly, we've been rationing her insulin because our old insurance was garbage and we couldn't afford full doses. You're saying that's covered now? All of it? Insulin, test strips, doctor visits, everything. Send me her information and I'll personally make sure she's set up with the best endocrinologist in the city. Clyde's eyes welled up. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep making excellent parts. That's all we ask. Word spread fast. Within a week, Becker Industrial Solutions had applications from skilled workers at other companies. People wanted to work somewhere that treated them like humans instead of expenses. Samuel was able to hire back 20 of the people the Beckers had laid off, expanding operations into a secondary product line that had been neglected for years. The factory floor hummed with energy Austin had never seen. Morale was up, quality was up, and production timelines were improving. It turned out that when you treated people well, they performed better. Revolutionary concept, but not everyone was happy about it. 8 weeks after the board meeting, Austin got a call from Benjamin McIntosh. We have a problem. Brent Becker is talking to competitors, trying to sabotage our vendor relationships. He's telling people that Titan Capital is unstable, that we're going to fold, that they shouldn't sign contracts with us. Can we stop him? Austin asked. Legally, not unless he says something defamatory that we can prove. But he's being careful, staying just inside the bounds of protected speech. He's also been posting on business forms under fake names, spreading rumors. Samuel on speakerphone swore quietly. I should have seen this coming. He's bitter and he has nothing to lose. What's our play? We outperform him. Austin said we let our results speak for themselves. Any vendor who listens to Brent's nonsense over our actual track record isn't someone we want to work with anyway. That's the high road, Samuel said. I'm not sure I want to take the high road anymore. Then take the smart road. Bonita interjected. She joined the call. Brent is making himself look desperate. Every time he badmouths us and we keep succeeding, he looks worse. Let him dig his own grave. They followed Bonito's advice and she was right within a month. Brent's attempts at sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Vendors saw his desperation and started avoiding him. His reputation in the business community tanked. Meanwhile, Becker Industrial Solutions landed a major contract with a national automotive manufacturer, a deal that guaranteed stability for the next 3 years. The local business journal ran a story from crisis to comeback, how new leadership saved Becker Industrial. The article praised Samuel's turnaround strategy and highlighted the employee welfare program. It didn't mention the Beckers by name, but the omission was damning. They'd been erased from their own company's success story. Morin took it the hardest. She'd built her identity around being a Becker, around the social status that name carried. Now, that name meant nothing, and she had no idea who she was without it. She started calling Austin, leaving rambling voicemails that ranged from apologetic to accusatory. "Please just talk to me." One message said, "We made mistakes, but we're family, or we were supposed to be. Don't you believe in forgiveness?" Austin deleted them without responding. Samuel had been right. Forgiveness didn't mean allowing toxic people back into your life. It meant letting go of anger, not letting them hurt you again. But Christina was different. 3 months after the canceled wedding, she showed up at the hospital at 2 a.m. looking exhausted and desperate. "I need to talk to you," she said when Austin emerged from a trauma surgery. "I'm working and we don't have anything to say to each other. Please, just 5 minutes." Her eyes were red-rimmed. "I know I don't deserve it, but please." Against his better judgment, Austin led her to the doctor's lounge. 5 minutes. "I'm sorry," she began. "I know that's not enough, but I am. What I said at the wedding, laughing when my father I was wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things. You humiliated my brother, the person I care about most in the world, and you laughed. I know. I was trying to fit in with my parents' expectations and I lost myself. I lost us." She looked at him pleadingly. "I've been in therapy working on things, trying to understand why I did what I did. And I realize now that I was so focused on pleasing my parents that I never asked what I actually wanted. And what do you want, Christina? I want to make this right. I want another chance. I want no." Austin's voice was firm but not angry. "You don't want me. You want the idea of me. You want to fix your guilt to prove you're a better person than you were. But that's not my job. I'm not your redemption arc. Austin, I watched you become someone cruel because it was easier than standing up to your parents. And maybe you're working on that now, and that's good. But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change that when it mattered, you chose them over basic human decency." Tears streamed down her face. "I made a mistake. You made a choice. And I made mine. I chose my brother, my integrity, my self-respect, and I'd make that choice again every single time." He stood up. "I hope you figure yourself out, Christina. I hope therapy helps, but I'm not going to be part of that journey. Find someone else to prove you've changed. I'm done." He walked away. And for the first time since the wedding, he didn't look back. 6 months after the canceled wedding, Becker Industrial Solutions was thriving. The factory was running at full capacity. They'd hired 50 new employees and profits were up 37%. Samuel had been featured in Forbes as one of 30 under 30 to watch in the manufacturing sector. Austin's employee wellness program had become a model that other companies were trying to replicate. They celebrated at Chang's. Naturally, Mrs. Chang brought out her special dumplings, the one she only made for family, and refused to let them pay. "You boys make me proud," she said, patting both their heads like they were still kids. "Your mama and papa. They watch from heaven. They see what you do. They proud, too." Austin raised his beer. "To Dad, who taught us that work means something. And to Mom, who taught us that people mean everything. To family," Samuel added. "The one we're born with and the one we choose." They drank to that. And as they ate dumplings and planned the next phase of the company's growth, Austin's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Dr. Perez, this is Ernest Crawford from the board. I'm calling with some news you want to hear. Brent Becker just filed for bankruptcy. His personal bankruptcy, not business. Apparently, he's been gambling, trying to make back what he lost. Didn't work out. He's lost everything. In the house, the cars, all of it." Austin felt a complex mix of emotions. Not satisfaction exactly. Not quite sadness either, just a kind of resigned acknowledgement that consequences were real. "What about Morin and Christina?" he asked. "Morin's moved in with her sister in Connecticut. Christina is apparently working retail somewhere, living in a studio apartment. She's cut ties with both parents from what I hear, trying to start over." After he hung up, Samuel asked, "Bad news?" "Depends on your perspective. The Beckers lost everything." "For real this time?" Samuel was quiet for a moment. "You feel bad about it?" "A little, maybe. I don't know." Austin pushed his beer around the table. "They made their choices. We made ours, but it's still sad, you know, to watch people destroy themselves. They had every opportunity to do better. We gave them an out. They could have walked away with something, but Brent kept gambling, kept making bad decisions. At some point, that's on him." "Yeah." Austin looked at his brother. You know what though? I'm glad we didn't destroy them. I'm glad we just removed them from power and let them destroy themselves. Because if we crushed them directly, I'd feel worse. This way, they had agency. They had choices. They made bad ones. That's because you're a better person than they deserve, Samuel said. But I'm glad too. Revenge is supposed to feel good. But I think this feels better knowing we built something good instead of just tearing something down. Speaking of building something, Austin said, pulling out a folder he'd been carrying. I have an idea. What if we expand the employee wellness program, not just here, but partner with other companies, consult with them on building similar programs? We could create a whole new standard for how manufacturing treats workers. Samuel's eyes lit up. A consulting division. We'd be helping more people, spreading the model, and making money while we do it. Win-win. I love it. Let's build a proposal for the board next month. They spent the rest of the night sketching out plans, dreaming bigger. And when Austin finally got home at midnight, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated hope. 1 year after the canceled wedding, Austin was asked to give a talk at a medical conference about integrating health care into workplace wellness programs. He almost said no, public speaking wasn't his thing, but Samuel convinced him. You've helped transform an entire company. People need to hear how you did it. Besides, you're great at explaining complex things. You're a teacher at heart. So Austin found himself on a stage in Chicago looking out at 300 healthcare administrators and HR professionals, feeling his heart pound in his chest. He started with the story of the canceled wedding. A year ago, I was standing at an altar about to marry someone I thought I loved. And my future in-laws humiliated my brother in front of 800 people. Called him trash, laughed at him, and my fiancé joined in. He paused. I canceled the wedding. Best decision I ever made. He had their attention now. But this isn't a story about a wedding. It's a story about values. See, my brother, who'd been mocked and dismissed, turned out to own my in-laws' company. And when he took control, he didn't destroy it. He saved it by implementing programs that valued employees as humans instead of expenses. And it worked. The company went from near bankruptcy to record profits in under a year. He clicked to his first slide, showing the data. Healthcare costs down, productivity up, employee retention through the roof, quality control metrics better than ever. Here's what we learned. Taking care of people isn't charity. It's good business. When workers don't have to choose between seeing a doctor and paying rent, they perform better. When they know their families are protected, they're more loyal, more engaged, more innovative. It's not complicated. Treat people well and they'll deliver excellence. The talk went viral. Within a week, Austin had fielded calls from 50 companies wanting to know more. Samuel's consulting division launched with more business than they could handle. They had to hire a full team just to manage the demand. And through it all, Austin kept working as a doctor. He couldn't give it up. Medicine was part of who he was. But now he had balance. Purpose in both worlds. Helping individual patients and helping entire workforces. Samuel teased him about becoming a celebrity. You're like the Dr. Oz of workplace wellness, except actually helpful. Please never compare me to Dr. Oz again. They were in Samuel's office, a real office now, not the cramped space he'd started in reviewing expansion plans. Becker Industrial Solutions was branching into new markets, acquiring 2 more struggling manufacturing companies to turn around. The model was proven. The formula worked. You ever think about Dad? Austin asked suddenly about what he'd think of all this. Samuel set down his pen. Every day, I think he'd be amazed. Proud definitely. Maybe a little overwhelmed by how big it's gotten. But mostly, I think he'd be happy that we're doing it right, that we're not just making money, we're making a difference. And Mom, she'd cry, happy tears. Then she'd make us her Ras Khan polo and tell us not to get big heads. Samuel smiled. They gave us everything they had. The least we can do is make sure other families don't have to sacrifice like they did. Austin's phone rang. The hospital. Perez here. Dr. Perez. We have a patient in the ER construction accident. Multiple injuries. Patient specifically asked for you. Says you saved his leg 5 years ago. Wants you to save his life now. Austin was already grabbing his keys. On my way. He paused at the door, looking back at Samuel. Dinner tomorrow, Chang's always. Austin rushed to the hospital. His mind already shifting into doctor mode. The business side of his life faded and the medical side emerged because this was who he was. Someone who saved lives, who fought for people, who never gave up, just like his brother, just like his parents had taught them. And as he scrubbed in for surgery, Austin realized something. A year ago, he thought he needed the Becker's approval to be complete, to be worth something. But he'd always been worth something. He'd always been enough. Canceling that wedding had been the beginning, not the end. And everything that came after the company turned around, the wellness programs, the consulting business, all of it was just proof that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who don't see your value. Because somewhere out there, someone will. And when they do, you'll be ready for them. 18 months after the canceled wedding, Austin met someone. Her name was Tanya House, and she was a social worker at County General. He'd seen her around for months. She was the one who fought with insurance companies to get patients the care they needed, who found housing for homeless patients being discharged, who somehow made miracles happen with no resources and endless determination. They met officially when they both arrived at 6 a.m. to check on the same patient, a teenager who'd been in a car accident and had no family. Austin was handling the medical side. Tanya was handling everything else. "You're Dr. Perez," she said, shaking his hand. "I've heard about you, the surgeon who operates on hope and stubbornness." "You're the social worker who makes the impossible happen," he replied. "We should collaborate more often." They did. And somewhere between patient consultations and rush cafeteria coffees, Austin realized he was looking forward to seeing her every day. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she was good, genuinely thoroughly good in a way that didn't require fanfare or recognition. When he finally asked her out 3 months later, she laughed. "I was wondering when you get around to it. I've been dropping hints for weeks. I'm a little gun-shy after my last relationship imploded spectacularly. I heard about that. Everyone has. You're kind of a legend around here. The guy who canceled his wedding because his fiancée was terrible to his brother. Most romantic thing I've ever heard." "That's romantic." "Hell yes. You chose love and loyalty over social pressure and convenience. You walked away from someone who didn't deserve you. That's not just romantic, it's heroic." Their first date was at Chang's. Mrs. Chang took one look at Tanya and beamed. "You bring nice girl. Smart girl, good girl." She turned to Tanya. "You keep him. He good man. Heart of gold." "I can tell," Tanya said warmly. Samuel showed up halfway through dinner. Austin suspected Mrs. Chang had called him. He slid into the booth, extending his hand to Tanya. "I'm the brother, the one from the wedding story. I've heard so much about you. Austin talks about you constantly. Good things, I hope. The best things. He says you're the smartest person he knows and the only one he completely trusts." Samuel glanced at Austin. Something warm passing between them. "He's not wrong, but I'm also incredibly annoying and I'm going to third wheel this date to make sure you're good enough for him." Samuel Austin started. "It's okay." Tanya interrupted laughing. "I'd be suspicious if you didn't vet me. My sister did the same thing when I started dating my ex." They spent 2 hours talking about work, family, dreams, failures. Tanya shared that she'd grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until she aged out at 18. That's why she became a social worker, to be the advocate she'd never had. "I get it," Samuel said quietly. "The system failed you, so you became the system you needed. Austin did the same thing. The medical establishment failed our family. So, he became the doctor who doesn't fail people." "And you?" Tanya asked. "I became someone who makes sure workers aren't treated like my father was." We all have our origin stories. The question is what we do with them. By the end of the night, Samuel gave Austin a subtle thumbs up. Tanya had passed the test. Over the next 6 months, Austin and Tanya built something real, something based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. When he introduced her to the Becker Industrial team, she fit in immediately, offering suggestions for expanding the wellness program to include mental health services and child care assistance. "She's perfect for you," Samuel said after one board meeting where Tanya had presented her ideas. "She gets it. She gets us. I know it's terrifying." "Why terrifying?" "Because I screwed up so badly last time. What if I'm wrong again?" Samuel shook his head. "You weren't wrong about Christina. You saw what you wanted to see because you were lonely, but you're not lonely anymore. You're happy and you're choosing Tanya with clear eyes, not desperate ones. That's the difference." Austin proposed at Chang's naturally. Mrs. Chang cried. Samuel recorded the whole thing on his phone, grinning like an idiot. Tanya said yes before Austin finished asking, pulling him into a kiss that tasted like hot and sour soup and happiness. "One condition," she said. "Your brother has to be your best man." "Obviously, who else would I ask? And we're not inviting 800 people. We're inviting about 30. The people who actually matter." "Perfect. Then yes. 1,000 times. Yes." They got married 6 months later at a small ceremony at a botanical garden. 30 guests, doctors and nurses from the hospital, Workers from the factory, Mrs. Chang and her family, Samuel and his girlfriend Eva Carey, who he'd been secretly dating for months and finally admitted to, and Tanya's foster sister, who'd flown in from Seattle. Ernest Crawford, who'd become a mentor to both Austin and Samuel, officiated. His speech was short and perfect. Marriage is about choosing someone every day, not just on the wedding day, but every morning after. It's about standing beside them when the world tries to push you apart. Austin and Tanya already know this. They've both fought too hard and survived too much to take love for granted. So, this isn't just a wedding. It's a promise to keep choosing each other, to keep fighting for each other, to keep building something beautiful together. When Austin kissed his bride, Samuel Wolf whistled and the whole garden erupted in laughter and applause. At the reception, Austin found a quiet moment with his brother. "Thank you," Austin said. "For everything, for saving the company, for having my back, for not letting me marry the wrong person." "You would have figured it out eventually," Samuel replied. "You're too good to stay with someone who diminishes you, but I'm glad I could speed up the timeline. Still, I owe you. You don't owe me anything. You've been saving my life since we were kids. This is just me returning the favor." They stood there, two brothers who'd survived poverty and loss, and people who tried to make them feel small and watched the people they loved celebrate love itself. "Dad would have loved this." Austin said he would have cried through the whole ceremony. "Mom, too, they're here though. I feel them. Me, too." The reception went late into the night. No country club pretension. No judgmental stares. No one keeping score of who is important enough to attend. Just people who genuinely cared, celebrating two people who'd found each other against all odds. And when Austin and Tanya left for their honeymoon a week in Costa Rica, nothing fancy, just beaches and quiet, Samuel handed them an envelope. "Don't open until you land." On the plane, they opened it together. Inside was a deed to a house, a beautiful craftsman in a good neighborhood with a yard and enough space for the family they'd talked about starting someday. "He bought us a house," Tanya whispered, stunned. Austin wasn't surprised. That was Samuel. Quiet, thoughtful, always 10 steps ahead. The note inside said simply, "Every family needs a home. Love, Sam." Austin called him as soon as they landed. "You bought us a house. I bought you a wedding gift. There's a difference. Samuel, you gave up everything for me once. Let me do this for you, please." Austin's throat tightened. "Thank you for everything. Just be happy, Austin. That's all the thanks I need." 2 years after the cancelled wedding, Austin and Tanya's house was full of life. They'd adopted a dog, a 3-legged rescue named Lucy, who'd been abandoned at a shelter. They were talking about kids, about the future, about all the possibilities that lay ahead. Becker Industrial Solutions had grown into a regional powerhouse, a model for ethical manufacturing. Samuel had acquired 4 more companies, implementing the same transformation at each one. The consulting business had expanded internationally. They'd literally changed industry standards. And through it all, Austin kept being a doctor, kept saving lives, kept fighting for patients who needed someone in their corner. One evening, Austin came home from a particularly brutal shift to find Tanya in the kitchen cooking dinner and humming along to music. Lucy was curled up on the couch. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes and home. "Bad day?" Tanya asked, reading his expression. "Lost a patient. 8-year-old leukemia. We tried everything." She pulled him into a hug, letting him feel it. "I'm sorry." They stood there for a while. Lucy eventually padding over to lean against Austin's legs. This was what healing looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic victories, but quiet moments with people who loved you through the hard parts. Samuel called. "Tanya said eventually he wants us to come to the office tomorrow. Says he has news." The next day they gathered in Samuel's office. Austin, Tanya, Eva, and the core leadership team. Samuel looked nervous, which was unusual. So he began, "I've been thinking about expansion. We've proven the model works. We've changed how manufacturing treats workers, but I want to go bigger." He pulled up a presentation. "I want to create a foundation. The Thomas and Maria Perez Foundation for Worker Welfare. We'll fund research into workplace health, provide grants to companies wanting to implement better programs, and offer direct support to workers in crisis. Healthcare, education, emergency funds, all of it." Austin felt his eyes burn. "You're naming it after Mom and Dad. They started this. Their sacrifice, their struggle. It's why we do what we do. I want their names attached to something that helps people like them. People who work themselves to death trying to provide for their families." "How much are you putting in?" Austin asked. $20 million to start. But I want you to run it. You understand healthcare. You understand workers. You understand the mission. Will you do it? Austin looked at Tanya, who was crying. Then at Samuel, his little brother who'd grown into the most remarkable person Austin knew. On one condition: you let me put in $5 million. Half the money I've saved, invested, built up over the years. This is our legacy. Both of us equal partners. Samuel's eyes widened. Austin, I'm serious. We do this together or not at all. Samuel walked around the desk and pulled Austin into a fierce hug. Together, then always together. The Thomas and Maria Perez Foundation launched 3 months later with a gala that was actually meaningful, not socialites pretending to care, but actual workers, actual families whose lives had been changed by the programs they'd implemented. Clyde Murray spoke about how his daughter's diabetes care had saved her life. A woman named Laura Johnson talked about how the education assistants had let her get her nursing degree. A man named Pedro Graham shared how the emergency fund had kept his family housed when he'd been injured on the job. These aren't just programs, Pedro said, his voice breaking. This is proof that someone gives a damn about people like us, that we matter, that our lives have value. When Austin took the stage to speak, he looked out at a room full of faces. People who'd been invisible to the Beckers, to people like the Beckers, to a system that treated workers as expendable. 2 years ago, I was supposed to get married, he began. And my soon-to-be in-laws humiliated my brother in front of 800 people. They called him trash. They treated us like we were less than human because we came from nothing. And I walked away from that wedding, from that family, from that life. He paused. Best decision I ever made because it led me here to this work, to these people, to understanding that wealth isn't measured in country club memberships or social status. It's measured in the lives you touch, the people you help, the changes you make. My parents died too young, broken by a system that didn't value them. But they taught us, my brother and me, that every person has dignity. Every person deserves respect. Every person matters. And this foundation is how we honor that lesson by making sure other families don't have to sacrifice what ours did. The applause was thunderous. And as Austin left the stage, Samuel caught his arm. They'd be so proud of us. Samuel said, I know. I feel them every day. And he did. In every decision, every program, every life changed for the better. Austin felt his parents' influence. Their sacrifice hadn't been in vain. Their struggle had meaning. Their legacy lived on in ways they never could have imagined. That night at home with Tanya and Lucy, Austin's phone buzzed, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Dr. Perez, a woman's voice, hesitant. This is Christina. Christina Becker, I know I probably shouldn't call, but I wanted you to know I saw your speech tonight online and I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. You deserve so much better than how my family treated you, than how I treated you. And I'm so happy you found it. Austin was quiet for a moment. Thank you for saying that. I hope you're doing well. I am. I'm working as a teacher now. Elementary school. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And I'm in therapy, actually working on myself instead of just talking about it. I'll never forgive myself for what I did, but I'm trying to be better. That's all anyone can do. Be better than they were yesterday. Your brother is he happy incredibly. He's with someone who sees his worth. They're building a life together. Good. That's good. She paused. I won't bother you again. I just wanted you to know that what you're doing, the foundation, all of it, it matters. You're changing lives. And I'm grateful I got to witness even a small part of your journey. Even if I was on the wrong side of it. After she hung up, Tanya asked, You okay? Yeah, that was closure. Real closure. She's not the villain anymore. Just someone who made bad choices and is trying to do better. I can let that be enough. That's growth. That's us. We choose growth over bitterness. Progress over revenge. Love over hate. Very wise, Dr. Perez. I learned from the best. They curled up on the couch together, Lucy between them, and watched mindless TV. And in that simple, perfect moment, Austin realized something profound. He'd won. Not by destroying the beggars, not by crushing his enemies, but by building something so beautiful, so meaningful that their small-minded cruelty became irrelevant. By choosing love and purpose over anger and revenge, that was the victory. Not their downfall, but his rise. Not their punishment, but his peace. And as he drifted off to sleep, Tanya's head on his shoulder. Samuel's text lighting up his phone. Foundation raised $2M tonight, we're going to change so many lives. Austin smiled. This was what winning looked like. This was what happiness felt like. This was home.